Hello and welcome to Story Mode. It would be really good for me to mute Lewis's stream so I don't hear an echo. Um, we missed last week because I slept through it, I swear. And I feel really bad, so this is my formal apology. I have a tendency of not sleeping enough sometimes. I actually did sleep today. I slept for like 7 hours. It was
I don't
beautiful.
I don't think that you need to swear that you overslept. I think people will just believe you.
Okay, fine.
So that's usually you lie about, right?
Yeah, I totally overslept. I wasn't sitting at my computer at all editing a video. Wait. No, I overslept because I was editing a video that morning. And worked too long on that. But anyways, we're live now, so that's what matters. Welcome to Story Mode, the show that is about as consistent as my sleep schedule. So there we go. Hi, my name is Blind. I'm your host. I'm gonna do quick introductions here. Lewis, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. So yeah, I'm Lewis, also known as LRFLEW.
And go ahead. Just
I was just gonna try to throw it over to Eggman.
okay. Yeah, just we'll be professional about it.
I think
I'm
just
Oh, I was waiting for Blind to introduce me.
Eggman, hi. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling very clean after playing this game.
I mean, I just took a shower, so I'm right with you.
It's a joke because you play as a vacuum cleaner.
I love this game. So if you've never seen this show before, Story Mode is a book club kind of show where we talk about a game that we played over the last month-ish, and usually short story-based indie games often. Sometimes less indie, but mostly pretty damn indie. So if you do not want spoilers or you are sensitive to spoilers, please turn the stream off now and simply wait for about a week for me to put up the audio version on our SoundCloud or on my YouTube channel. Or I don't know, where else do you find these things? Anyways,
your waking nightmares.
yeah, sure, it will be into your brain. A little tiny vacuum cleaner is gonna just like drive over you, and you'll just know it. So, anyways, have you ever wanted to be a sentient vacuum cleaner? Because this is the game where you can do that. Rumu is the premier AI-based Roomba that you get to play as in a video game. Let's just start off with impressions, because I thought this game was bloody adorable.
This game was very... I always want to describe games like this as very sweet, so much so that, well, it's not even that, but like at the beginning it's just, your character is very cute, and it makes you very happy. And by the end, maybe not so much, but it's still very heartwarming.
Yeah. Do you have any impressions, Lewis?
I mean, I liked it. It was very cute, and then very dark, and then very cute again.
I think that what will be revealed through our conversations about this game is that it follows a lot of tropes, but it asks questions about the characters involved in them that makes it a very fulfilling experience.
I think it follows a lot of tropes, but is just so cute about them all, and it just does a really good job executing them. Like the whole thing about tropes, right? If you do a good job executing on those tropes, and you take like styles of writing or things that people are used to, or story cadences, and you do a good job of just kind of making everything make sense, it doesn't matter if your story is trope heavy, assuming it's well written. And it's got the production value. It looks nice. It plays mostly well. I've got a question. Is this game on like iPad or tablets? Because
I don't know.
I
Want me to look that up real quick?
I can look it up. It sometimes feels like the UI design was designed for tablet.
It's well, while you guys are looking that up, I can give a quick overview of what the game is.
Go ahead.
Basically, the opening scene is Rumu booting up, and you play as Rumu throughout the game.
Nope,
And-
it is not on iOS. It is on console though.
And so you are woken up by Sabrina, who you learn is the AI that controls the house where David and Cecily live, and David and Cecily are your creators.
You're
And
woken up by
so,
Jarvis.
yeah, and so you go through a series of days doing different tasks, cleaning up around the house and trying to figure out how to advance from room to room, all the while uncovering, sort of discovering some things about the house, about David and Cecily, and about Sabrina that
Both
uh,
Sabrinas.
both Sabrinas that are very interesting.
This game has a pet the cat button. You can attempt to pet the kitty. It doesn't work very well.
I never saw that. I saw talk to the kitty.
If you click the cat, it says talk. It says talk to the cat. You click it again. Talk to the cat. Talk to the cat. Talk to the cat. Pet the cat. And then it says I cannot do that.
Oh.
Oh, I didn't click pet the cat enough times apparently,
Yeah.
or talk to the cat enough times. But yeah, so it in day one, you basically wake up. Sabrina has you run through this tutorial program, and she wants you to stay in the tutorial room, basically the workshop where David and Cecily, who are premier robotics experts, fix and create their robots.
It's
And
worth pointing out that it is modeled after that real room that you visit later, where they kind of test the robots, but you're technically still in like the subconscious because it has the aesthetic that you have in between the days for kind of that subconscious area.
Right. Yeah, so you are not technically in the physical world yet, and Sabrina asks you to stay in there, and you can stay in there and clean messes almost all day, but
Actually, you can actually clean it all day. So in this area, there's an achievement. So the idea is Sabrina will give you these little tasks you can do, and at some point it says clean up 99 messes. And so she'd create a mess, you clean it up, and she'd create another one repeatedly. And there's an achievement for getting all 99. I was crazy enough to try to see what happened. I got the achievement, and after the 99th mess, she just keeps creating more messes. It just keeps going. It actually will not stop until you try to leave.
I mean, that was like the first thing I did. I was like, oh, look, a door. I'm done with this. I think I cleaned up like the minimum number of messes and then out the door I went.
Yeah, the first time through, I was like, yeah, when I saw the 99, I was like, okay, that's probably not what I'm supposed to do.
yeah, so when you go to try to leave the room, because otherwise, if you're, I guess, bored out of your mind, you're just cleaning messes all day. But you can try to leave the room. Sabrina says, no, you're not ready yet. And because she says that you've just been created and need to like calibrate your emotional sensors, because you're a robot that's designed only to love and to feel no other emotion. And so brutally, Sabrina tells you, if you love me, you will stay.
Which is a reference to something that happens later. It's foreshadowing.
Yes. And you don't really have any other option to continue the game but to leave. So
this game has dialogue options, which is interesting because both of the options are variations on I love you.
Yeah.
But they usually throw a double negative into the option 2, so it'll be like, or yes, I'll do this because I love Sabrina. And then there will be one which is I love listening to what Sabrina has to say, and then you completely ignore her.
Yeah, there's ones for like that. Yeah, there's sarcastic responses, and there's also I love not. So like there's one part where you might say I love Sabrina or I love not Sabrina.
Yeah. It's
I think my favorite part about the branching dialogue is the first time you get it. So when you first get woken up, Sabrina's talking to Rumu, and Rumu just responds with "I love blank." Basically, she's talking about, I'm Sabrina. It's like I love Sabrina. It's like you're designed to clean messes. I love messes, right? It's like, oh, I see your conversation's not very sophisticated. Maybe I should turn on your branching dialogue options. And then she shows you like a painting on all the different TV screens around there, and it's like, what are you thinking? And you got two options, which is I love art and I love painting. And whichever one you choose, she's just like, oh, I see. No, it's like, oh, I don't know what I expected. Like,
yeah.
And so none of the branching dialogue options changes everything. I went through and I played the game twice, trying different options for most of them, and nothing happens. You get like 1 or 2 different lines. That's it.
It's just flavor.
It's interesting, and the flavor is nice. And so since there's only really 2 dialogue options for every prompt, you can basically get 100% of the game choosing every dialogue option with just 2 playthroughs. But like Lewis said, it doesn't actually change anything. But
yeah.
I kind of always treat those as if they do affect something, and after a while it was apparent that they didn't. But my approach to them at first was to just always pick the dialogue that says "I love Sabrina," so or something to that effect. Like I ignored all the David and Cecily ones. I was just like, I'm just gonna focus on Sabrina, just to see what happens, and it didn't really do anything. But when you wake up on the first day, Sabrina tells you that David and Cecily have gone out to, I think they just went to work on the first day, and they're not there. So you have to clean up before they get back so that they're just like, they don't have to worry about it. Right?
You gotta clean the kitchen.
Yep. And so you clean the kitchen, and you clean the pantry, or actually you go into the pantry, you go to sleep, you wake up, and then you have to and then you have to get out of the pantry again. And it kind of goes on like this for a while. Until I think the 3rd day is when things kind of.
Well, on the second day you learn about Sabrina, right? Like the
Is it
human
the
Sabrina?
second day?
I thought it was the second day.
I think you're right. I think
no,
it's
the second day is the big one because that's the one with the painting.
right. So I was thinking, and the first day is actually split up into 2 parts. It's kitchen and then pantry, because there's a break in there, but it's not actually a new day. And so.
I thought it is technically a new day because you go to sleep in the pantry.
Right, which is strange because you don't. Well, I guess you don't really go to sleep anywhere in particular in the other days either. But you'll find out later that power is an issue for reasons that we'll discuss. And so I was thinking on my second playthrough, I'm like, why can he sleep in the pantry? There's no place for him to charge himself. So.
I think technically there is a charger in that room if you look carefully. It's like underneath the cabinet or something.
You kind of almost have free run of the house, and it's an interestingly designed thing because it's all kind of interconnected, even though the game is extremely linear. So you'll be kind of retreading areas from different angles, like you'll be going from like the living room to the foyer, or the bedroom to the office, and it's kind of neat. I like the way the level is designed, just not completely linear. And then there's day 2, you mentioned the painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So day 2, you find this painting which has a weird power grid on it, and it lets you unlock.
Okay, to talk about the power grids, on that day 2, you end up chasing the cat, and you eventually find the cat, I think, in the shoe closet or something. And when you're trying to get to the cat, power goes off. And Sabrina basically says that you can try routing the power to get out, and so it teaches you a little mini game where you can. It's basically a connect the lines thing, and so you can do that to get out.
Quite simple.
And then you find another one in the next room that powers security gates. So you have to turn those off, and then you see the painting, and you realize the same power grid is on it.
Yeah, you click on the painting, and then you zoom in on the painting, and then you can fuddle around with the power grid, and then it unlocks. I can't remember the name of the room. Was it the laboratory?
Yeah, laboratory. But before you go to the laboratory,
before you go to the laboratory, it flashes words on it, which is like the most foreshadowing in the entire thing. It's like, oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, it's like, this is not real or something, and there's a big X over the eyes, and
it says you are not real.
You are not real.
Yeah. And
still have no clue what that's all about.
Yeah, I never actually figured that bit out.
Oh, it's pretty straightforward, but we don't have all the pieces to explain it right now. Okay. So continue.
I meant what the text is, not what it means. You know what I mean?
I mean, I get what it means, but like, I don't get why. Anyways, we'll talk about that later, I guess.
Yeah.
Then you go into the laboratory, and then Sabrina just freaks the hell out of you.
Oh yeah, she gets
get out.
She gets really angry at you.
You're not allowed to be in here. It's like you caught her with her pants down.
Yeah, and this is the main laboratory where David and Cecily do all their work, and Sabrina is very protective of it. for not really any particular reason, but
well, reason that you do kind of figure out.
it's because it's emotionally important for her, but there's no reason. I don't know. It doesn't make.
It's like catching her with her pants down. You don't do that.
I guess. Anyways,
Don't walk into Robot's room while she's defragmenting. Come on, man.
No, she defragments on the third day, I think.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna go defragment. I like that line.
Yeah.
The best line for a computer to be like, I'm just gonna go relax for a bit.
Anyways, the third day I think is one of the longest in the game, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. You start off by having to clean up David and Cecily's bedroom. Oh, and as you wake up, Sabrina apologizes and says, "Oh, David and Cecily have gone out again today. They
mountain biking." That was
mountain biking.
This becomes a trend. Every single day, she comes up with some sort of excuse for mom and dad basically to be out of the house. And it's always like, oh, they went hiking, or oh, they went to this other place to do a talk, and then like later on she's just like on the scene of her pants, just like making them up. So she'll be like, oh, I think there was another
restaurant, and
yeah, that one actually is interesting because when you play it a second time, you catch a nuance to her excuse there. But I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. On day 3, she says they go mountain biking, which is important because you happen to find their mountain bikes. But that's a different story.
Yeah, I noticed that one.
Yeah, and so as you clean up their room and like tidy up some clothes, eventually you'll route power and find your way into an older room, and you go in there and Sabrina gets angry at you again, but doesn't turn you off this time. She lets you explore, and she says, "This is Sabrina's room." And after just a few clicks around, you'll find that
it isn't.
And also it isn't.
Yeah.
Because Sabrina is also the name of David and Cecily's daughter, and this is basically her untouched room from back when she was living with them, and you find out almost immediately that she left. I mean, you can see in her room even that there's these posters of Paris and Italy. You can see she kind of had some wanderlust. And you're also
immediately after that room, so you have to find some, I think, objects of significance to Sabrina or something like that. And when you do, you get revealed. So you spend a lot of the game in the vents trying to get between rooms. So you find another vent hole and you go through it and you find kind of this little cubby outside of the site of Sabrina with a bunch of markings on it that the human Sabrina had put. And
Yep.
They're talking about how she used to hide there outside of the site of the AIs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and her little hidey hole in the vents.
Yeah, and there's all these crayon drawings, and you'll find out later that some of the crayon drawings are in magic marker or something, and you can't see them, and that's what the text is on the painting. It's in this magic marker that can't be seen except in the, what do they call it? The emotional vision or data vision or something?
Well, the thing is that what I understood, that the data vision, that because on the second day, Sabrina, when she tells you to chase after the cat, will say, "I'm going to let you basically see through my eyes," and that's when you get data vision, and so you can see like footprints and stuff. But in a ton of rooms, there's writings on like walls and stuff that can only be seen in this data view, and so that's, I think, largely what that's referring to. And in fact, in another hidey hole later on that looks empty, you can see writing if you go into data view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then it's explained at some point that people can't see it, but the bots can, which is actually really interesting if you think about it. Because why would Sabrina be coloring on the walls in something that only the robots can see?
I think actually a little bit more subtle than that. It wasn't so much that the robots could see it, but that only that specific data vision could. That, like, the robots who were designed for it, or basically Sabrina, could see it. Because she mentioned she started doing that so that the robots wouldn't wipe away her writings.
Hmm.
And so when you're in Sabrina's room, there's a couple more clues. Like Sabrina gives you data on a couple of objects in the room. Like there's a hamster cage, and it says, "Oh, this has been empty for 4,300 days." You're
Yeah.
like, "Wait, what?" So
Yeah.
so my initial assumption was that Sabrina's been gone for a long time.
Yeah. Like maybe she moved out. It's also the same with the fishbowl.
Yeah.
The fishbowl says a similar number. Which, yeah. I kind of love the foreshadowing that this game has throughout. I think it's really well paced. It's just the game is quite short, right? It's like 2.5 hours, and the foreshadowing is just heavy and what?
Oh, I think it was a perfect length.
Yeah, it's like a full length movie basically, and throughout every day there's a little bit more foreshadowing. Obviously, it really starts off with the painting on day 2, but it kind of pulls back after that, and it's a lot more subtle. And even throughout things like finding Sabrina's room, and then even stuff that happens after that, going through the basement and then back up and whatnot, which we'll talk about. The foreshadowing is really well paced, and it actually hits a climax kind of at a really nice point to just fall into the ending. And I think that's like kind of really well done for a game. And I know that might sound weird, but there's a lot of games that we've talked about here that have kind of weird pacing, or maybe strange pacing, if that makes sense. Like either no real climax, or it's just kind of flat throughout, or just kind of flat and then climax and then flat. I think that the writing in this game is, at least story arc wise, a hell of a lot better than a lot of stuff we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, this game has great pacing and narrative arc.
It feels like the people who wrote it were like took a lot of classes
except
in writing.
Maybe day 3 could have been a little bit shorter. I think they could have gone away with getting rid of the basement without too much problem.
I like the basement because it was a change in scenery.
Yeah, but it was also actually it was one of the more difficult puzzles, I think, and more complicated. Especially because of perspective. There were some perspective issues in the basement.
I couldn't figure out what item to push. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys about some of your theories that you had up until this point of the game, which is around about halfway through the game. Because for me, I had a ton of different theories. Like when I saw the painting, it's like my initial thought is obviously, oh, this is somehow a dream or it's a simulation. And I also that brought me to think that like Sabrina's going off the walls and now I have to escape. At one point, I thought that David and Cecily weren't even real because Sabrina had said they're different by design, and I was like, that's kind of a weird thing to say about people.
She was talking about the birds and the bees, but okay.
I mean, maybe it's just a quirk of that AI's speech, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys have any other theories that you thought of along the way? Because this was one of the games that I had the most different theories before we got to the conclusion.
I don't know. Something about cleaning and the idea that this was supposed to be some sort of mystery. I always had the idea that at some point I was going to have to clean up David and Cecily's blood after they died or something.
Yeah, I was half expecting that. Because, like, that's kind of what the Steam image looks like. Just the red, and then Rumu just, like, going through the red. Theories. Well, I had the thought that, maybe there's something going on here where they're dead or they're gone. I think similar to Lewis. But the one through line that I kept wondering is who the hell is feeding the cat? Like, what is that cat eating?
He's eating the wild mice.
They actually have an automated feeder that you can see.
Do they? Okay.
They do.
Spoilers for the end. This house is in full grid lockdown. It's impossible to get out, essentially.
Or in.
Unless it's unlocked by a member of the family. We'll explain why later. But Like that was my one big question is who the hell is feeding the cat? So I was convinced that either there's got to be like other robots or something else in this house, even if David and Cecily are gone or no longer in the house, which is pretty heavily foreshadowed. Like you can get a pretty good sense by like day 3 or even day 2 that okay, they're not here, and we're not going to be seeing them once again. The trend of short indie games based on story not actually showing people.
Yeah.
So that kind of wraps up day 3, where we learn for the first time.
Well, you forgot the library, which basically you go into the library, you have to figure out the security questions to get into Sabrina's computer, and you find a note she left for David and Cicely before she left.
Yeah.
Which includes a comment about, I hate that name that you chose for the AI.
The other theory that I had is I thought that Sabrina was Sabrina. I thought it was going to be we killed our daughter and put her brain into a robot. I was fully expecting that for a bit there.
I think it got a little too Portal 2 there.
In the basement is where I'm actually like watching through on a Let's Play right now, just to like remember little details because there's a lot of details in each room. In the basement is where you see their bicycles, which is right after the hidey hole.
Yep, that's what I was saying. You find the bicycles and you can confront Sabrina about it, and she's like, "Oh, those are antiquated ones. Of course they'd be using the high tech ones, right?"
See, I didn't even notice that until you pointed it out earlier on. Like you said that you see their bicycles, right? I didn't notice it. I didn't realize, like I didn't try to click on them or anything, so I didn't get any dialogue from that.
Every single room I went into, I'd go into data view because anything you can click on would glow.
Yep.
Green, yellow. I'm colorblind.
Green.
Oh, that's a good point, because when you went into data view, everything was either green or red.
I mean, I could tell what was red. That was easy enough.
It's green and red. I mean, it didn't have any other colors, so you're fine. And then I think that the library is actually a really interesting room on top of the computer because there's a lot of little details that you kind of learn about everybody. There's a ton of items you can pick up and look at. Everything from David and Cecily's achievements to little bits of dialogue that kind of give you almost flavor text and kind of give you an idea on what their family life was like. That Sabrina really didn't like the tech, seemed to kind of just be like an outdoorsy person who like enjoyed camping type. And her parents just want her to be sucked into the internet essentially. Go on.
Yeah, she complains about her parents not paying enough attention to her, basically. And after she begs them for a dog and they finally give in,
that's like a cat. They had a dog named Lucky.
Okay, yeah, but I think it was when she asked for the dog, though. I think she asks for a dog.
I feel like they got the cat after she left.
Yeah, they got the cat after she left, but she had been asking for the cat, and after she left, they got the cat to see if that would perhaps make her happy enough to come back, sort of thing, like to show that they're willing to compromise.
Right. But anyways, I think that the memory that you can find in that room is one where right after they got the dog, David, her father, was very against it, but one of the most like happiest memories that she had of her family was like shortly after they got the dog and he was out playing with Lucky and her. And so it shows that like it wasn't that they were just like cruel parents. It's just that they didn't really know what they were doing.
Yeah, that was basically what Sabrina says at one point, is like, it wasn't that they were bad parents. They just tried to, get assistance, sort of thing. And
right.
They had a hard time caring about their human child because they were too busy caring about all their AI babies.
Yeah, pretty much. They were married to their work, as the expression goes. Yeah.
And so at the beginning of day 4, then, if you had been paying close attention, which I hadn't until my second playthrough, this is actually the second or third time that Sabrina mentions that you sleep very soundly. and that she was worried that you wouldn't wake up.
Hmm.
And
Is day 4 the one where you start in the office?
you start in the foyer, but you go directly to David's office after that.
Okay.
And you go to David's office, and you can kind of root around on his computer, and you find that, like, oh, the electricity bills haven't been being paid. And there's also something about drugs, which isn't really expounded upon very much.
It was spam. I think the point was it was supposed to be spam. It was in all caps.
Okay. But anyways, the bit about the electricity kind of explains the fact, like, why the electricity went out on your first day, and also, or the second day, and also, like, why things are going a little strange. And I should also mention, in the foyer, there's a entry pad that, like, has logs of people that go in and out, and there's, like, some people in there, and some of them you recognize the names for, but all of the years are missing. But it's 20 XDX, basically.
20XX, yeah.
And so that's another clue that I found on the second playthrough as to what all's going on here. But you basically root around in his office for a while, and I don't know what else is important that you find out from his office.
Well, that's the day where you find the Sabrina 2.0 patch.
It has my favorite puzzle in it.
Oh, the hamper puzzle?
My favorite puzzle is you have to find the password, and it's like I'll write down the password somewhere big and obvious, and you're staring at this screen and you're like, where's the password? And there's like a whiteboard or a blackboard or something that's facing your screen, and because of the art style of the game, it's transparent, so you're looking at the password backwards.
Yeah.
There's this giant bloody circle around it, and so I just sat there staring at the screen. I was like, where the hell? Oh my god. And then I was staring at him, like, trying to type this thing in backwards. I really like that context sensitive puzzle. It's my favorite puzzle of the game.
So it's on day 4 that you learn more about what you are and what they were working on, because outside of Sabrina, which was a multi-emotion AI, they had decided after she was kind of becoming unstable to mess with single emotion AI, since they tried a bunch of different trials, some of which did not go well, such as making an AI for the toilet that could only have disgust. The note for that one was, I think this might have been cruel.
There was a depressed laundry hamper, which was amazing.
Yeah, and there was also what all was it? There was a shredder that was angry.
Yeah.
I will shred your paper.
I think there was the. Oh yeah, the sad. What did you say the hamper was?
It was a depressed hamper. I can
right.
check.
Sadness.
Yeah.
And then there was also surprise, which is a toaster oven that flings toast across the room.
There's multiple instances where you can find the toaster oven, and you can always, like, pull the thing down, and then it gives you a power meter, and you can, like, launch toast.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring something up. I know Portal was mentioned earlier on, and I was talking with Lewis about this game last week before we were originally supposed to do this episode. And he kind of compared it to Portal. Just not in gameplay in any way, shape, or form, aside from the fact that it's a puzzle game, but more in themes. And I would go so far as to say that this might be my favorite evil robot, or not evil robot, but like robot in a video game since GLaDOS. I really like Sabrina.
Yeah. I can see
that. Morally ambiguous.
Sure.
Robot.
But, yeah. I feel like this game kind of deserves more attention. But we'll talk about that later.
I will mention that we were talking about tropes that this game might have. Back when we talked about Tacoma, I had mentioned I really didn't like the trope of the evil AI that turns against humanity. Something that like I talked about in Event Zero as well. But I think this game avoids that issue. It's done very carefully.
Yeah.
I think we can get to that when we get closer to the finale of it. But yeah, day 4, basically, you end up with the laundry hamper who is feeling all of the emotions, like all of them at the same time. And so you need to install the like personality hampering thing, and that's supposed to allow you to deposit the laundry, but things don't quite go to plan.
Yeah. And this doesn't really have much to do with anything, but when you're looking at the computer, you get you know how you mentioned the spam email, right? In that same screen, there's another email, and you can. And I looked at it and I was like, that's a straight up email address. So I tried emailing it and got nothing back, and I was kind of disappointed. I was really hoping they'd have like an auto reply or something, but no.
An ARG.
Not necessarily an ARG, but you sent us an email. Yay! Thanks for playing our game. I don't know. But
Yeah.
it would have been cool. Developers do that. I like dumb shit like that.
Yeah.
You put an email in your video game, I'm gonna email it. Okay.
Yeah. I think we learned that one from the very first episode of Storymode. But anyways.
Yeah. So in day 5, I can't remember exactly how it starts out, but
well, remember day 4, Sabrina gets angry at you again when you try to apply the patch, which was called the Sabrina 2.0 patch, and you find notes in the office about how that's supposed to like stabilize her, make her less erratic or something.
It's supposed to like put a dampener on her emotions, so that she can't feel as much.
It's straight up removing some of the emotions that she's supposed to feel, right?
Yeah. Basically turning her, like, this part really felt like Portal to me, especially like character progression wise, because there's a portion with GLaDOS where you
remove the personality spheres and
and then she's kind of just like, hello. I need to play through Portal again.
Anyways, day 5.
Yeah, so
that's the one with the toxic cleanup, right?
Right, and you have to do that inside the main lab, which this time Sabrina is okay with letting you in because you've already kind of gotten to that point, I guess. But
they also add in this level, you end up having to 3D print something, so there's a 3D printer you can interact with, and it comes with like only one schematic built in, which is the ball. And I was like, I wonder what happens if I tell it to just print like all the balls. And I filled up the room with a bunch of balls and I was playing around with them. And then the room got kind of noisy because they kept bouncing off of everything.
It turned into like a McDonald's ball pit. It was like,
I didn't put quite that many, but it was enough that I kept hearing like clink, clink, clink. I was like, yeah. But that was fun. I like games that allow me to mess around like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the day where you spawn in the attic, right?
That's actually like an interim that they don't define that as a day. There is one day where
question mark.
Yeah, there's a thing where you spawn and Sabrina is like, "Oh, David and Cicely are going to watch the lunar eclipse. Let's watch it from here." And then you have a bonding moment.
Yeah, I think we should mention that because I get the feeling that these days aren't actually days in order. I think there's really long periods of time in between these days.
Yep. That's what it is.
And that's where it's just like, yo, this actually hasn't been the span of a week. This has been like 5 years.
Yeah.
Potentially. Because every day you're just getting moved elsewhere and things are happening. At this point, I don't know. You know how we talked about theories earlier? What were your guys' theories around that point in the game when you woke up in the attic as to what was going on?
I hadn't picked up on the fact that there was long periods of time passing in between each day yet, but I also had kind of dropped my theory that Cecily and David were not real, but I thought that Sabrina was deliberately keeping me away from them. But she also had problems understanding her own identity because she's supposed to be based on Sabrina, and I think that she really felt that, and that David and Cecily actually did a pretty true to their word impression of Sabrina through the AI, and that's why she's so conflicted in all these things that she's doing.
I was convinced that David and Cecily went insane and killed Sabrina to make Sabrina. That was 100% where I was. I was like, okay, they're pulling a GLaDOS with this.
I actually wasn't having theories at this point. It was, I really liked the aesthetic, and they have that attic, and I liked the dialogue, and I liked the colors, and I liked that I had a Logitech keyboard and mouse, and there's integration with that, and I think a couple other things. And so on the keyboard, like the WASD, Shift, and 1 and 2 were glowing red to basically say these are the controls, and then everything else, the mouse and every other key, would flash with Sabrina's voice. It was actually really quite mesmerizing.
Well, that's kind of neat. Did you use the tank controls or did you use the mouse controls?
I used the mouse.
Okay. Yeah, the tank controls are kind of...
Why would you want to use the tank controls? This is clearly a point-and-click adventure.
Basically, you can click on the screen to move Rumu around, or you can use WASD and have to orient yourself with Rumu in the room, which doesn't rotate with Rumu, so it's very difficult. It's helpful
I would almost
move backwards, but...
You mentioned aesthetics. This game is pretty aesthetic. I love the backgrounds and the shifting colors and just how the rooms look. Everything about this game is very visually appealing.
Yeah, it's very clean.
That, and can I get a plushie Rumu, please?
I just want a Rumu. Someone give me a Rumu.
Can I get a real Rumu? Yeah.
You just want a Roomba that looks like a Roomba?
There's
with the hard eyes and everything. Yeah, just do it.
You could probably just like get a Roomba and then 3D print like a Rumu, or just put it on top of the Roomba.
There's a new park 2 blocks away from my apartment, and as I was walking around today, they have a Roomba mower to mow the grass there.
I've heard of that.
I'm just like, why would you use it in a public park though? That thing's not gonna last. But I guess whatever.
So you're gonna walk up to it and pick it up and walk away with it.
I think the mower ones are a little bit larger than like the house ones.
Yeah, it's pretty big. But I couldn't go right up to it.
It's like the size of a Roomba, like. Although I'd be
considered a lawnmower. But yeah. So you go through this intermediate day in which has a puzzle about jellyfish, and you're trying to open the vents so that you can. Or was that the last day?
No, that's the last day.
Second to last, yeah.
Sorry. So you go into this like funky sequence of vents. Is that what's next?
No, we never finished the day where you clean up in the lab. I mentioned the 3D printer.
Now we're in toxic cleanup now.
Yeah,
well, that was the lab, right? What was after the lab?
Well, we didn't actually, I think, finish that day. But just to quickly summarize, there's a mess in the lab. You try to clean it up, and you figure out you're not fitted with a hazmat unit, basically. So you have to find the schematic that's hidden. You 3D print that for yourself. You install it, and then you clean up the mess. And Sabrina's like, well, now you have like a really caustic thing. Let's make sure you can still run an obstacle course for some reason. And so she takes you into the room that looks like the one you first start the game in. And you do obstacle course on like simulated materials like steel and grass and sand. And you have to clean up
messes. This is a really weird portion of the game because it becomes like an arcade mini game.
Yeah.
Where you have to do like really janky Pac-Man.
Yeah.
You also have to dodge arrows that look like the symbol for Sabrina, which is a little bit weird.
I will say that actually confused me because that's not the first time you have to do that. At the very beginning of the game, there's a part where during the movement tutorial, you have to dodge an arrow, and like there was an arrow coming at me, and I was like, oh, do I go towards the arrow? Nope. Oh, that didn't. What do I do? What? And I eventually just like randomly got it. It's like, oh, I was supposed to avoid it.
I think that was kind of my least favorite portion of this game because I think everything, like the mini games, because I think everything about Rumu is very polished and nice and clean and looks nice and plays well. But these mini games were kind of janky.
I don't know. I think the other mini game. So in this room, I don't know if you noticed this. There's the part where you can go to where you have to clean up like the five messes on the five different materials.
Asteroids looking thing.
And then you can go to the left to the laptop and you can play what's sort of like Snake, except you don't grow longer. Instead, more things you have to dodge spawn and you have to collect points. And oh man, I had so much fun with that. I would totally like get that as like a phone app game or something.
Should just clone it and make it into a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably something they did in an afternoon.
Well, I mean, it's something that they could release as their own game. I mean, what was it? Zachtronics, they created Shenzhen IO, and they had a solitaire game that was just like a little mini game in it. And it was so popular, they released it as its own Steam release. You could just buy the solitaire from that game, which is actually a really nice version of solitaire.
I might look into that. I've been itching for some good solitaire. And I'd like to give Zachtronics money, but I'm not smart enough to play their video games. Anyway, so after the obstacle course,
then you wake up unexpected.
Things get a little trippy.
Yeah, so you wake up kind of early in the attic, and you hear Sabrina talking to Cicely. So you're like, hey, I want to finally meet Cicely. I mean, it's been a few days, and I haven't been able to meet up with her or David. I should go say hi. And so you basically start wandering your way through the system to try to find out where they are.
Yeah.
And there's some great little moments. There's one where you have to overload a jellyfish simulator so that
I think that
you overheat the room.
Because I'm following through on a let's play here, and from the simulation area, you go into the like memories almost.
Right, we did skip over. There's the test that she decides to give you, which is
3 doors.
3 doors with 3 different scenarios, and you have to say how you feel.
Yeah,
that one was just weird. That was really weird.
I was just wondering if you guys got anything out of that. Essentially, what it is, it's a they give you like almost captioned memories of
David and Cicely.
David and Cicely, and from their past, like recordings of them, because earlier on you hear that there's cameras throughout the entire house, and so you get like these 3D holograms of them, and you can kind of see them going about their day in various situations. One of them's them playing video games, which is pretty funny, and then you have to say how you feel. It's almost like a sanity test, like here's a bunch of splattered dots, what do you see? It's obviously a butterfly. So yeah, I don't know, that portion was strange. It was neat though, because it's kind of like your first sighting of them, you know. It's the first time you actually encounter David and Cicely.
Yep. In their holographic-y forms, so that they don't have to actually render faces.
I didn't really...
And then
I didn't really understand this. At least I think that it didn't matter enough, I guess. Like, if there was a point where branching dialogue mattered, I think this would have been it.
Gotcha. And then there is kind of an important bit after those 3 memories, because a door opens up at the back of the kind of gymnasium area, and then you actually encounter Sabrina, the robot.
Yes, right. You do see the computer, Sabrina.
And there's like a very big perspective shift. I actually thought the game bugged out initially because it zooms right the hell in on Rumu, and I was just sitting there, I'm going, why are you so zoomed in?
Yeah, I kept trying to go into data view, see if I was missing anything. Nope.
Yeah, and then you get to see her as a server. So
she's a giant tower of a server.
She's clearly a gateway PC, just a really big one.
Yeah.
It's like a gateway PC that fills up the entire house.
So when you said gateway, I was thinking like gateway drugs, like Sabrina, never once.
Okay, so
Anyways,
then this sorry for interrupting you. This and then you wake up in the attic when you're not supposed to be awake.
yeah, and you decide to hunt down Sabrina since or you hunt down Cicely because you hear Sabrina talking and saying that name. You get out of the attic. You eventually get into this room, and like the security unit's like, we're on lockdown. You can't get out of here. Vents will open if the room overheats. So you go to the computer that creates jellyfish, and you're like, create all of the jellyfish.
And then you overheat the computer,
overheat
and then
the
the
room.
room overheat. And then yeah.
I don't remember what exactly happens after that. I think you just go through the vents for a long time until you end up outside of that testing room.
You go through the vents, and you can hear Sabrina saying a lot of foreshadowy things. Basically saying like, "Oh yeah, I gotta do this. Oh yeah, we'll make mess. Blah 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 blah. This thing's happening." You know. And then once you make it through the vents, you find the other character that's in the house.
Messer,
who's a clone of Rumu, but evil.
and Red.
And instead of a vacuum cleaner, he makes things dirty.
Yep. He creates messes.
He's
And,
adorable.
There's a really key part of foreshadowing in this because you hear, Sabrina talking to him, and he calls him Cicely most of the time. But then at the very end, she refers to the Messer by its actual name, Messer, and he's like, I don't understand that name. It's like, that was the name that David and Cicely gave you. It's like, David and Cicely, and just gets interrupted by Sabrina yelling. It's like, you don't have to remind me. Now go power down. Or whatever, right? So it's like, what was he about to say?
My theory at this point is that robot was David. Like, I was still convinced that Sabrina was Sabrina, right? And then I was convinced that robot was David and Cecily.
I can see that.
And then, like, maybe Rumu's the cat. Or the dog. Maybe Rumu, that was kind of where my head was.
Rumu acts like a dog, so that's possible.
Rumu's the dog. That would work. Sweet. We found the family. This is not lucky. What ended up happening, but no. That's where I thought it was going. Can tell what brand of sci-fi I consume. Alrighty.
Anyways, immediately after that sequence, you wake up again, and Sabrina is like, "Oh, David and Cicely are out. Go clean up some messes," and you find like a trail from the cat prints, and Rumu's just like, "I'll clean this mess later. I've got more important things to do."
Yeah.
And so you end up going back into the lab, and you interrogate a smoke alarm and a centrifuge for some reason.
I mean, throughout the entire game, you're interrogating various appliances, so it's not particularly strange. Like, earlier on, you're talking to a fax machine.
Oh yeah, in the attic. Yeah, and you can respond by either saying, "Well, I love fax machine," or fax machine noises.
Yeah, now I want to talk to a dial-up modem. Oh, that would have been good.
Yeah, there's a lot of adorable moments like that. Anyway, so you end up in the room with Messer, and you confront Messer, and you basically ask what happened to David and Cecily, and Messer reveals that David and Cecily died back in 2018 because Sabrina did something. It's actually kind of vague about that. That it was like a mistake, an accident that Sabrina caused, I think.
Yeah, it was early on. There's actually I'm recalling now. Very early on in the game, there is a foreshadowing for toxic gas. I think she might even say neurotoxin.
She says cyanogen gas.
Is that what she says? Okay, yeah. Well, neurotoxin.
I'm pretty sure, actually, when they talk about it a little bit after this sequence, that it sounded less like a poison, less like a toxin, and more that it was just replacing the oxygen. It's like what happens if you try to breathe pure helium. You'll just eventually die of suffocation.
Yeah, because it was earlier on when you're trying to find the cat, and then she's like, well, I could just flood the room with this stuff, but that would be bad because then David and Cecily would be mad, so we'll go find the cat.
Yeah. I could flush it out by putting some toxic gas in there.
Yeah, so she does foreshadow that, and what ended up happening
And it's also worth
is
noting that, this happened in the lab. David was in the lab when this
yeah,
accident happened. Previous day, the one that Eggman was talking about, that, that they're in that restaurant and there was an accident there. Before she says restaurant, she says, David, David and Cicely were in the lab when, no, they're at the restaurant. It's like she interrupts herself. She goes from the actual story that happened to the one she was making up.
Yes.
and then like is like a small child when she's lying. She like stumbles it, thinks about it, stops, continues talking.
Yeah.
But anyways, so what happened with the accident was David was in the lab and was working on some sort of experiment, and something went wrong, and it released this gas into the oxygen. And then Cecily goes over and says, "Open the door." And then Sabrina says, "No, I can't open the door because you'll die." And then she's like, "No, open the door."
If you
Open
love
the
me,
guy
you'll let me
door.
in.
Yeah, and then you open the door, and then Sabrina
opens
opens
the door
the door,
and they die.
and then
She
they
had to
both die.
basically do an emotional override because I don't know what all that entailed, but she was in distress, so presumably it had something to do with that.
Yeah. So it's
But
not nearly as like evil as I was expecting
yeah, but
at
that
all.
line, "If you love me, you'll blank," is repeated a lot in the game. Most times, it's because you're supposed to do the opposite. So in that very first sequence, when the only way to win that the training is to leave the door, she'll say, "If you love me, you will stay," and then you go through the door. And there's a number of other sequences like that, which seems to correlate with the idea that Sabrina regrets that decision of opening the door, that she regrets that she was being manipulated with that line, and so she kind of tries to use it with Rumu to get Rumu to not listen to it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So
But yeah, you eventually realize that, yeah, that's what happened. You go through a sequence where you're like driving through the inside of Sabrina or something. I'm
it's
not.
like it's super surreal. It's kind of hard to tell what's happening.
It's
Yeah.
basically a series of vents, and they're not like the vents that you've seen in the house thus far. It's just randomly. I don't know if it's randomly generated, but
Well, okay, you're talking about the one
random.
where you go through the different days, and like it says day 1, day 2, day 3, and it has all the dates, and you're going through the vents. But that after that, there's a sequence where you're basically inside of a room made out of that data view, and you have to like
Yeah.
collect fragments of something and solve little puzzles to get to Sabrina.
It's bits and pieces of the house, but like broken up with like large gaps of nothing in between, and you have
Yeah.
to kind of solve puzzles to make them slide back together.
And it's during this sequence that I think the more important dialogue happens for the story. So Sabrina is talking about how she didn't want you to know, she didn't want Rumu to know about this because he knew his love circuitry wouldn't be able to handle it. Rumu would basically shut off, and Sabrina couldn't handle being alone. And then a really touching moment, Rumu basically says, like, I love David, I love Cicely, but I love you, and basically forgives her.
Yeah, it's
adorable.
it's really good.
Yeah, that was really adorable, and I have to say that kind of redeems the sort of evil AI trope. It's like it's not really evil; it's just it was an accident. She does feel bad about it, and she's sort of redeemed in
And
the end.
during this portion of story and dialogue dump, she does also state that the house is in lockdown, and they tried to get in, but they can't. And then they have shut off the power, and their power reserves haven't run out yet, but they're going to.
Yeah, it actually mentioned. They also mentioned that it took her many months to deal with David and Cicely's body, by which time the police and everyone, the businesses and whatever, they gave up on trying to get in the house.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But
so the house is just kind of there in lockdown with a cat in it.
Yeah, very much.
The robots hanging out.
Until Sabrina comes, but I think Have we finished that with that sequence? Should we move on to what happens at the very end?
Sure.
Yeah, we're done with that sequence.
Okay, because after that, and you tell Sabrina that you love her, you wake up in the front door area and you hear the doorbell going off, and so you have to go answer it, and then you get a cut scene where you see the front of Rumu in the shadow of a woman who is, I think, supposed to be Sabrina, the human Sabrina, the daughter Sabrina, finally coming back home, um, and she sees Rumu, and uh, something love. He gets the hard eyes. It's just adorable. It's absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
It's about the cutest ending you can have for that game.
Because Sabrina's the only person who can still unlock the house, right? Go ahead, Thyeggman.
Yeah, and to get to that point, you have to go through all these like 2.x patches. So you go through like 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, whatever, and it's kind of a culmination of kind of the iterations that she's gone through, the changes that she's gone through the course of the game, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. There's also a thing, like, I think in that section, if you look at your goals list, it's like uninstall the 2.0 patch or something.
Yeah. I mean, the patch number doesn't really matter. I think that the fulfillment that you get through the end is really good. Like, yeah. I also wanted to talk about how, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but like Sabrina is a wonderfully complex character. Like from the beginning of the game, I was like, oh, she's just a nice AI. That's kind of cool. Eventually we'll see David and Cecily and we'll do this and that. And then when she was revealed to be kind of crazy, I was like, oh, she's an evil AI. We're going to have to escape. And then later, once we learned about Sabrina, I was like, oh, she's modeled after David and Cecily's daughter. And as you keep learning more about her, you realize that she's just like a very complex AI and is very human in that respect. And the challenges that David and Cecily faced of parenting are kind of manifested in her, which is very cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting because she's not a evil AI, she's a regretting AI.
Yeah.
She's a human.
Remorseful.
She's humanized. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out that in that sequence on whatever day it was, where you go through the 3 doorways and get the 3 scenarios, the first one is kind of a happy scenario with David and Cecily playing a game. But the second scenario, they're talking about Sabrina the human leaving. And the third scenario, they're talking about Sabrina the AI, basically going a little bit crazy with the emotions. And I think you're supposed to kind of draw a parallel between those two.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's definitely something that you can. I think that this could have a lot more emotional impact for somebody who has dealt with the challenges of parents who don't love them or don't pay attention to them, or the parent or loss, right? Or the parents who have struggled with these own issues themselves. So that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that how many games have we talked about now that have AI, evil or otherwise?
More than 5?
Actually, I'm not even sure how many. Event Zero, Tacoma,
yeah, it's
Red
2.
Strings Club, Rumu.
Speaking of which, Tacoma and Red Strings Club were both given away for free with that Twitch Prime thing that was happening.
Yeah.
So
That's
you should
cool.
go play those.
You should, if you pick those up, play them. They're both good.
Those are great games. But man, I guess kind of my full thoughts on this game is it's the perfect length. It's really well paced and it's really well written. And it's not the most exciting or crazy climactic ending in the world. It's not the most action-fueled thing. It's just a really nice story.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's nice. It's a nice story about some very human AIs. Also, something that I don't think we mentioned throughout the entire thing. Sabrina always reiterates that Rumu's ability to love is set to 0.5%.
Yeah.
I think that she was talking about his capacity to love. So like he can only love a certain number of things, but he can love a very large number of things.
Yeah. Which I always thought was kind of interesting. It's like, what would happen if you set him to 100%?
Well, she throws around random numbers that are all like hard coded. There's one where like she talks about your pathing efficiency at being like 98.6% or something, and there's another one later which is about like
bumping the walls.
Yeah, terrain efficiency at like 92% or something.
She also just throws out numbers that don't make any sense. Like she says, "Oh, your top speed is 0.01 kilometers per hour," and I'm like, "That's like 100 centimeters an hour or something like that."
Huh?
Sorry, it's 10 meters per hour, which is 30 feet per hour. No, more than that. 30 meters. It's 10 meters per hour. I can't convert to feet. Which is
somebody in chat mentioned Chobits. I've got the manga right over there. Like, I could go grab it, but it's right over there. Chobits is great.
Anyways, I really did enjoy this game. I mean, I think going in, you should understand it's dark. It's gonna get sad. It's gonna get dark. It has its cheery moments. Don't think it will leave you on a happy note, but expect it to definitely dip into the dark. I would say play this in a dimly lit room with a bright monitor so that you can get that nice flashing effect from Sabrina, and you'll get the full effect.
It's like sitting down for a movie. I wouldn't necessarily call it a sad story though. Like,
it's dark.
It's dark, yes, but it has such an, like, if you look at the ending, right? Sabrina wasn't going to come home. This made her come home. Even if it involved her parents dying, all that they wanted really was Sabrina to come home. And if you kind of look at it that way, it's almost like a dark, kind of bittersweet ending to it, because there was an accident, it was awful, yada yada, but she still has her parents' work, and I think that that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. You know, it's like that's what they would have wanted, is for Sabrina to come home. I don't know. I think it's a very happy, bittersweet, dark story, which I enjoyed, and it's my brand of sci-fi.
At least in the end, the AI wasn't the bad guy, which is a trope I actually rather despise.
There wasn't a bad guy at all.
No, that's what he was saying. It isn't.
Yeah,
there is nothing evil going on here. It was a accident.
Exactly. He's not saying that.
We're on the same page here. I don't like the trope when the AI turns bad. This game does not have that trope.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, probably the evilest thing in this game is Messer, and even Messer just kind of exists.
Messer is not a villain. He's cute. I like Messer, actually.
Is there a villain in this game?
The cat.
Sabrina kind of acts as one because she basically lies to you.
But that's literally, Sabrina is just keeping herself from going insane. Like, sure.
That doesn't preclude her from being a villain, but it's interesting that we can have a game where there's not a real villain. If anything, it's that we have a limited amount of time. It's time, it's energy, that we can't continue this pattern. But
it's hard to say. I wouldn't call Sabrina a villain necessarily. More just lost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that can also be interpreted as a villain, right?
She was probably the most human AI I've seen in a lot of these fictions.
Yeah.
Like I've mentioned before, when it comes to a lot of these like AIs, when I watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, when I played Red Strings Club, Like, the thing I wanted to do was sit down with these AI and have a talk. Just have a conversation. Because they always seem like such interesting characters that don't really get explored outside of, ooh, they be scary villains.
You and the AI from Tacoma should have a heart-to-heart.
Oh, I loved the Tacoma AI. He was a little bit more subdued, but I do like that he ended up not being the bad guy in that story.
Him and Sabrina should have a chat.
This one, I feel like they did such a good job with characterization that I didn't feel that as much. It was less, oh, I really want to sit down and have a conversation, as much as I just really like this. It's basically a person. It's like a human. It's like it's a really well-developed character.
The human that lives in a gateway PC.
Yeah, exactly.
Really big gateway PC. But no, I loved it. Like, straight up. Like, I loved this game. I loved every minute of it, with the exception of those stupid obstacle course puzzles.
Might be my favorite game of the year so far.
Really?
Maybe. It would be tough. I will say in the end, I do think fondly of Red Strings Club, even if I had some issues with it.
Yeah.
We played Doki Doki this year, though, too, didn't we?
Oh, God. This is going to be a tough year to choose a top 5.
I mean, this is my favorite game of the year, so.
Okay. Yeah, no, the one thing that, I'll be honest, the one thing that really pushed me to want to do this game as something for the show is, if you go to the Steam page, there's like 1,000,000,001 awards on this thing. It's like 9 out of 10, a winner for some Australian games reader thing from Kotaku, top 10 games of 2017 in Gamma Sutra, like, just quotes out the ass. It's just like, man, yeah, we need to play this. This looks good. I'm happy that we did.
Is Beckett in anybody's top 3, though?
Look, what games have we done this year that I think are better than Beckett?
We should cover this in a different show, but
yeah,
Beckett's its own category.
It's on a different axis to all the other games. Okay.
I think we need to start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Yep. Wrap up. For anybody watching live, this is LRFLEW's Twitch channel.
That'd be me.
You guys give him a follow. He streams late at night, Midnight Club every now and again.
I hope to do some more stuff as well.
Past midnight my time, so way past midnight his time, so like 6 a.m.
I usually try to start earlier than that, but anyways, I hope to stream some other stuff. OpenMC2 development. I plan to get back to Empathy speedrunning. I still need to do 100% for that.
Just to get it recorded. And I founded this show years ago. We run one episode a month. Usually we try and aim for a Sunday every month. I'm just going to say that now instead of second Sunday of every month, because we're more and more sporadic slowly. I think we're going to skip a month due to Lewis's schedule. So that's such as life. But we'll be back. We don't know what game we'll do next. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But for anybody watching live, thank you very much for joining us. Eggman, did you have anything you wanted to shout out or talk about?
I haven't been able to stream very much lately, not even like OpenRCT development, mostly because I'm taking an online class and it's taking up a lot of my time that I'm not just like decompressing from work. So, but learning stuff, so that's cool, I guess.
Learning stuff is interesting.
Always great to learn more stuff.
And I stream on twitch.tv/BlindiRL and stupidskill.com, and I edit stuff at Schematics Team. If you're interested in this show and you want to see more, you can follow us on Twitter at Real Storymode, which is on the screen, I think. Yeah, it is. And you can take a look at our Steam curator, which I need to update because I didn't put the last game on it. I just remembered. And where there's just a list of all the games that we've covered, as well as our SoundCloud, which is just Project Storymode, I think. I can put a link to that in chat. There's also through the SoundCloud, you can get the RSS feed and add that to any podcast player of your choice. We are not on a lot of major podcast platforms because, quite frankly, the show is too damn small and we always get rejected. I submitted it to Spotify recently and got rejected, so such is life. Yeah, Thank you very much to everybody who watched live. Thank you very much to everybody who listens to the audio version. I did get one tweet, so if you listen to the audio version of this, if you're subscribed to the podcast, tweet at me at BlindiRL and
or at Real Story Mode. I think we can get it there.
Or at
too,
Real
right?
Story Mode works too, or any of us really, because we'd love to hear what you think of this show, because it's a very small thing, but there is a few people who do listen to it, and that's always cool to see. So to people watching live, I think we're gonna just kind of talk to chat for a little bit and hang out, and this is where the show ends. So thank you very much to everybody who tuned in. Cheers, and we'll see you in a month or 2 months. Peace.